If my value is that my mom doesn't have a fall again, or we want to mitigate falls, that's a value. My mom's falling in her own home.
Hmm.
What kind of questions do you ask of a community? And they can't be, yes, no. They need to be open-ended questions to really
Yes.
get to the heart of how does this play out in a community of care?
Right.
Because everybody can give you the canned answer, but there's the art form of finding out what's behind the canned answer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Very
that's
true.
and that's where the trained professional can help you.
Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show.
And welcome everyone to Answers for Elders Radio Network, heard across the USA on YouTube and your favorite podcast channel. I am honored today to have back one of our heroes that are on our Who Do You Trust segment. Welcome back to Answers for Elders, Daphne.
You are welcome to, and I'm excited to be here. There's a lot to be said about how we care for our elders, so this is
Hmm.
great.
Yeah. And you know, time has never been more critical to me right now. Um, every single day, I'm hearing horror stories, and I've experienced some just really unique circumstances as I've been out in the community of organizations that I thought were, legitimate, great. And then I walked through the doors and they looked fancy and they looked beautiful. But when you start asking them the right questions that I know to ask, I'm kind of appalled. It's what's happening. One of the things you always ask a family is, what are your highest values? And that's just kind of an interesting question, but I internalize that. But it also goes to the community, the company that is representing them. And when I ask an organization, quote unquote, what are your highest values? That's an important question to ask also of the communities as well, whether it's an adult family home, whether it's a senior living organization, whether it's a home care agency, or a placement advisor.
Mhm.
Anyone in the what we call the cottage industry of senior care. And I am interested in your take of what is going on and why is this so difficult for people to answer these days?
That's a loaded question.
Yeah.
And, and I can certainly give you my perspective as someone who is in this field every day, talking to families in those various elements of our industry. And on a very broad scope, I'm going to say the very first thing that I see is happening is we have people who don't really know what it means to care for an elderly person.
Yeah.
They don't know what it means to honor our seniors. They don't know what it
Yeah.
means to execute a quality day. How do I help someone have a quality day? How do I help them find a sense of purpose? That is not a natural thought
Hmm.
process.
Hmm.
And so there's a little bit of a void going on right now in terms of skill sets. And so I think a lot of this came from it's a leftover from COVID,
Hmm.
and we're still kind of bouncing back. That was an event in our culture and our history that really changed
Right.
how we address care,
Hmm.
specifically in my world for seniors.
Right.
And so I think that's a part of it. I think another part of it is that the United States as a whole is going through a big transition and trying to find our feet again, trying to find what grounds us. And so everything is a little bit rocky. And how I see that played out is that families turn within. Families are not readily reaching out for support.
Mhm.
Families are not readily reaching out to making decisions that could augment their loved ones' lives.
Sure.
And so within our senior care industry, we're seeing a blip.
Yeah.
And the outcome of that is, and to all of you listeners, I want you to really hear this, to look in your own family, your own circle of influence, and just think about, do you see people suffering?
Hmm.
And think about what that word suffering can look like. Are people sad? Are people angry? Are people not able to do their activities of daily living, get up in the morning, have breakfast, go to the bathroom, take a shower, get dressed, start their day? Is just doing activities of daily living a hardship for people?
Right.
Do you see daughters and sons and grandkids and, people of support kind of throwing up their hands or their faces kind of droopy and the spark isn't in their eye and they don't know which way to turn? All those things are suffering elements.
Hmm.
And I see that every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and Daphne, you say, what are your highest values to a family?
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, number one, does a family really think about that even when it's time for care? But the second question is, how do they how do they connect with a provider that can really dive into what does that value mean? I know back when I was working way back when I worked for Tony Robbins, okay? He did a program called Date with Destiny. And one of the things is we prioritized our highest values, right? And but what it was what does that mean? What does that value mean? So I remember in my thing, my number one value was contribution. I felt like I needed to be giving something. Well, guess what? That's probably why I'm not a millionaire because I give too much out. But here's the thing that's interesting is that when we look at, how do we identify our highest values? We have to understand what does that value mean to you? And how does that play out in a community? And one of the things I think that there's a disconnect is a lot of times we don't know what organizations stand for. We don't know about their culture. We don't even know how to ask these questions. We are also, there's people in the industry that have all these conflicting values of, why are you a placement advisor? What is
Mhm.
your how do you determine who that person is? And what I would like to do this hour is really go into how do values play out in elder care and the overall picture and the cottage industry, by the way, of around senior care, or even when it goes down to attorneys, when it goes down to financial planners, when it goes down to moving companies. There's all different types of levels, but it has to do, I think, with there's disconnect on how do my values matter to these individuals. And I think one of the people that really can dive into that because you spend so much time with families is talking about these values. Um, what are your experiences around that piece?
This means, as families, that you need to first identify the values, and I'll help you with that. As a senior advisor, I will help you identify what that
Hmm.
looks like.
Hmm.
It would be my job then to find the communities that mirror your values.
Hmm.
If you're working by yourself, it's your job then to think of the questions. How does this get executed? If my
Hmm.
value is that my mom doesn't have a fall again, or we want to mitigate falls, that's a value. My mom's falling in her own home.
Hmm.
What kind of questions do you ask of a community? And they can't be, yes, no. They need to be open-ended questions to really
Yes.
get to the heart of how does this play out in a community of care? It
Hmm.
doesn't matter if it's a small one or a big community of care, but how do I ask the questions of finding out the truth?
Right.
Because everybody can give you the canned answer, but there's the art form of finding out what's behind the canned answer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
Very
that's
true.
and that's where the trained professional can help you. So
Yeah.
I will advocate in that, my cottage industry is a placement advisor, and there is a place for us more than ever for the
Hmm.
consumer to not do this by themselves.
So in our next segment, Daphne and we're going to go in to say, how do you find out what they really stand for? And in the meantime, Daphne, how do people reach you?
At Pinnacle Senior Placements, you can reach us at our name, our website, pinnacleseniorplacements.com, or 855-734-1500.
And we'll be right back right after this. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.